Yo, what's up, y'all? Third stream today, just getting a little bit of Saturn in there. Taking advantage of it when we can. So Saturn is rising, it's pretty wet right now. Humidity is high, it's atmospheric, and of course got the moon. That's a switch of vibe. Let's chill it out just a little bit. What's up, Brenton? What's up, Emily? Denver? Awake? How you doing, Vision? Denver Bay said, I have albums out. Yeah, those have been out for a little while. It's on Spotify and stuff. But I do have to do a new one. I have a couple just kind of works in, like full-on albums, but all works in progress. I've not found the time to finish them up. Pretty beautiful Saturn angle tonight. So I hope it gets a little bit clearer. We can do a zoomed-in shot. Saturn is still super interesting. I mean, I always say it's like Moon is great and then Jupiter's great, but then you play along with Saturn for a little bit and it boggles the mind that we have like a ringed planet that is visible. So I don't know if you guys know, but Jupiter apparently also has a ring, and Neptune, I think Uranus as well. But just the fact that Saturn is just so pronounced. Hey, cheers, Mary Shad. What's up, eat all yo fish? Sweet, Denver, I haven't seen you in a while. Good. Thanks for making it. Just gonna be playing some random like instrumentals in the background. I'm just here to chat. The archive of space tunes runs deep. All right, so it's getting a little better resolution. I was sitting on the back porch taking a look at the moon and Jupiter through binoculars. Really cool tonight. I yearn for a place where I can just have a scope with a full view of the sky like I used to. But can't complain, this is pretty gorgeous. Says, yeah, how far do you think the moon is? I can tell you how far I don't think it is now. So apparently it's measured in this way where it's 1 light second away from us. Therefore it's about 250,000 miles. And what I've changed my view about is the potential to measure distance using light speed. Even though apparently it does work in circumstances on Earth, and the meter is based on light speed, and therefore it's kind of intrinsic, but I feel like it's a little maybe arrogant or maybe a little too settled to just measure distance in space using redshift and the speed of light, recessional speed of light. So I wonder if there's a way to measure the distance to the moon using lasers without, I don't know, coming across results that are results that we want to find versus the actual results. So I'm not sure where the moon is. It's definitely amazing that you can see it in such detail. but I don't know if you can really measure it by pointing a laser at it and saying it's a certain light distance away, because I don't know if light actually travels. What's up, Easy E? Easy? I don't know, it does seem much closer, but I mean, I don't know if 250,000 miles or kilometers in space gets magnified in our atmosphere, therefore you can see the details better. That could be a reason we see it so well. The Electric Universe guys talk about several things. One is redshift being intrinsic of age and not expansion and distance. The studies were led by Halton Arp, somebody who really should be much more popular and known than he is. But the astronomer Halton Arp just really did a lot of research into how galaxies are formed and how galaxies actually stem from other galaxies and quasars, and they form along these arms that are spiral, almost the symmetry that we see in all the universe. And so they extend along these arms, and they have redshift value based on the heat and the age of the galaxy. And so for all these years we've been using, or not we, but the astronomers that we look up to use redshift as a way to determine distance in space. They also use the movement of light as a thing. And so both these things can be questioned, I think, in a very important, like serious way. I start talking and then I completely forget what's going on. All right, let's go. Let me get back to the chat for a moment. Emily, haha, right, it seems way closer. Jennifer Angel Chandler, hello from Illinois. Dig your vibe and love your channel. Thanks, and already subscribed. Awesome, thank you. Welcome. Interesting, Google says 238,900 miles. Miles are kind of ridiculous, but I realize also kilometers and meters are the same. It's just this arbitrary measurement that mankind has imposed upon a universe that it doesn't understand. So I've tried to get away from that and just kind of consider what's going on right now, which is the fact that we're these beings of digital nature, you know, sending data back and forth, and then the planets are similar. They're sending data to us, and we're sending data to the planets. Speaking of which, Saturn is looking mighty bright, which I can probably lighten up and kind of zoom in on at this point. It's all a theory, ever evolving, true. Eat all your fish says everyone sees with slight fisheye because of the lenses in our eyes are concave, yep. But it does seem possible since I can see craters and not the other coast. Well, you know, the reason for that obviously could be the atmospheric distortion on the ground is extremely dense, therefore, you know, muddying up the image entirely. And so we're even seeing it right here, like looking up at the sky, like wherever Saturn may be, you're still seeing the atmosphere and then Saturn in some regard, because there are clouds in front of it. Same thing with the moon and Jupiter. So we're seeing atmospheric turbulence right now in front of this, whatever this object is. My point was, it's super interesting how like you kind of remove the focus and then you get all this light coming in. And so my questions kind of stem around what is focus and what is vanishing point, and why does everything seem to come into focus all at the same place, like around, you know, 3 miles up in the air, roughly or so. All the image, everything at that distance becomes resolved at the same focus point. All right, so I'm gonna get this image up looking better. Be right back. Time is 12:11 a.m. Friday, May 25th. days to come when they take you on their boat. So got the 2X Barlow in, and but I think there's a bit of haze going on, so I have it on the wide recorded view right now. Emily Slater says, have you ever seen videos or looked up cymatics? Yes, in great detail, and I've done some of those plates and the Chladni patterns. Very interesting idea of the fact that resonance makes up physical structure. And if you look into Electric Universe, Professor Gerald Pollack talks about this fourth state of water called structured water, easy water, and how water could actually, exist in a lot of different forms that we're completely unaware of right now, or that the general public is unaware of. In fact, plasma could even be a state of water, fundamentally. Vision is Scary says, if you watch Carl Munch, you will side with Miles and Feet. Today I was watching videos of Miles Davis, and I think that's where I'm going to side. I don't know. I mean, yes, I have seen that Carl Munch stuff, but and even kilometers and meters, like I said, it's just some arbitrary system. I don't know if I want to side necessarily with anybody. All I know is I can see Saturn right now. Simple. What's up, Shilohara? So pretty. What's up, Yusuf Ghulam? It'll be wow when it clears up a little bit more, but it's pretty good right now. You get to see this amazing planet. Eat All Your Fish says Saturn is the generator projecting reality on Earth via the moon. So I've read that theory. I was really into that theory actually, way back when I first started this, where moon is like this amplifier. I even have a song called Moon is the Amplifier. And Saturn is a radio generator, and it looks like a radio dish, so it's really an appealing visual kind of corroboration of the conspiracy. But after I looked into the Electric Universe, the idea of, like Velikovsky puts forth in Worlds in Collision, is that Saturn didn't have its rings before. There was this brown dwarf that had a red sheath of light around it, and Earth and Mars were sister planets within the sheath of Proto-Saturn, which was our first sun. And that's why they call it, the ancient king, or Proto-Saturn, as Nibiru. And they used to worship Saturn, Saturnian deities, the deity of Saturn. So there's that, and so what happens is that our sun, or either Venus as a comet, or potentially some event with Jupiter, it ruptured this kind of structure that we had with Earth, Mars, and the early proto-Saturnian system, ejecting it and injecting all this crazy liquid, or what turned into ice around Saturn. So as the brown dwarf exploded, brown dwarf Saturn, it ejected Earth and Mars into different orbits based on some magnetic pulse or a discharge, and it ejected all this water, and that's where they hypothesized that the water on Earth came from this event from Saturn. It's one of the ideas, which is interesting to me. So I kind of replaced my Saturn as a created structure with Saturn as possibly a plasmoid event that we can somehow see and that kind of exploded a little while ago. You know, in the last like 7,000 years or something. Like, that's pretty crazy. Vision says, Carl proved beyond a doubt, unless it is a coincidence. No, maybe I'm just speaking out of line. I haven't looked into those videos that you mentioned. I haven't had a chance. So maybe I'm missing out on what he's talking about, but I kind of remember from a few years back when I was looking into those videos. But I'm probably speaking from just like light glossing over. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool to think that that Saturn is doing some wild shit, and like I've read even theories. You know, like I used to watch Richard Hoagland for a while, and he has ideas that like the progenitors had that actually when we sent satellites to the rings of Saturn, there were these spacecraft that used to there are these ancient structures they found that were for giants that are floating in the rings of Saturn. And those were some of the stories. They had these pictures, apparently. But what really seems likely is that what's happening is that, you know, liquid ice or structured water or some sort of plasma current is causing what is very obviously a spiral type of event that we see in nature constantly. We see it in our bodies, we see it in our minds, we see it in our aesthetics, in animals and such. And so there's a nice symmetry with the planets that kind of just exudes nature. And so the rings of Saturn seem really just glued to these magnetic bands around this energy field. And so Saturn and Jupiter both, and I'm sure other planets like Uranus and Neptune probably also have these convective Birkeland currents that are going around creating auroras, creating mixed vortexial patterns. I'm sure you've seen these pictures, these ridiculously titled pictures on news articles called like, what is it? Unearthly, oh my God, unearthly vortexes. Of course. Just some shit to hype people up, but these interlocked vortices on Jupiter are really incredible, but they really just follow fractal patterns and stuff that we know really well. Just take a look at some of the missions, you know, the Juno and Cassini stuff. I mean, I don't know, some people don't believe that that's real, you know, but it's possible that maybe robots can get into space. Especially if based on the electric universe, they follow magnetic currents in space. Therefore, guidance systems are maybe much easier than perceived publicly in the world of thermodynamics. Eat All Your Fish says, actually wait, Dr. Iyad Hassan, what's going on? Says, yeah, the EMVs, ring makers, electromagnetic volt, EMV, right? Electromagnetic vortice ring makers, maybe? Eat All Your Fish says, yes, I've read about it being the origin of the soul matrix, where souls get memory wiped before they get reincarnated here. Soul energy is like the power that the advanced beings used. So to that, I'll almost immediately say, aren't we the advanced beings? Like, I mean, sure, it's nice to fantasize about, you know, people who are taller and like perfect looking or perfectly brilliant or perfectly strong or super beings, but they always come with flaws, you know, similar flaws, or they're always trying to be human, because ultimately all we really know as the most advanced being, besides dolphins, of course, are humans. Not really, even. I don't know, I bet you they're like, I mean, I've listened to Terence McKenna a lot, and McKenna will tell you that the smartest thing on earth is mushrooms, and I kind of, I totally fucking believe him, but, you know, everything with a grain of salt and a grain of sand. I mean, that would be fascinating if Earth were like just completely controlled by mushrooms and bacteria, and we think we're doing something. Yo, what's up, my love cocktail? Shalom. Got an early morning tomorrow. Catch you on the weekend. Be blessed. Take care. Be well. Thanks for stopping by for a moment. Yeah, the views of Saturn right now are dipping because I'm sure that, like, the humidity is high, and you know, as soon as it gets a little bit clear, I'll zoom in. Hadley Scott McIntyre says, oh, the old black cube story. No, we are not the center. Yeah, the reincarnated soul matrix type of thing, right? So yeah, we are the advanced beings likely, and that's fine, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to solve being the Godhead. And so we are the most advanced beings, and we kind of keep throwing ourselves obstacles to ultimately achieve Godhead status, which a Godhead would do, you know, in order to trick itself ultimately. So I've also heard about things like the moon being a soul matrix as well. So you die and you enter this tunnel of light, and apparently at the end of the tunnel of light, we've all been led to believe that it's, you know, it's salvation at the tunnel of light, but apparently it's not. It's apparently a trap where they send you to the moon matrix and they reincarnate you and send you back to the prison planet Earth. I think David Icke, if y'all know him, probably originated that story, which is really interesting, based on likely stories from back in the day about the Fisher boy who sat on the moon. And I think if you really look at everything, well, I do now, but if you look at things through plasma cosmology, you get to add rocky planets, rocky objects, magnetism, and you also get plasma filaments. And filaments that, as we see on the sun, can look like anthropomorphized creatures and people and hair, for example. So I'll give you a thought I had today, which was potentially the idea of the Medusa, you know, with the crazy snake head, was probably, or not probably, that's not a scientific way to say things, but the Medusa archetype, right? Think about the idea of transmogrification and alchemy, and the idea that electric discharge can zap, let's say, silica and clay and turn it into another element, essentially create transmutation of elements based on like high plasma discharge. And so the idea that that perhaps things can, so I know what I was talking about. I was talking about petrification, the idea of, you know, fish and or animals and trees being zapped almost mid-sentence of their lives, and we have fossil records of this stuff where these things are just instantly turned into stone. And then the idea of Medusa that turned, you know, Perseus went to kill the Medusa, and she used to turn people into stone by looking at them. So the idea that Venus, streaming its jets of plasma, was creating these arc blasts that was turning things, like petrifying things in real life, and people were seeing this happen. I mean, that's the implication of what's going on, the roundabout way. I hope that made a little sense. So then they create this archetype of the Medusa head, which is just this screeching like snake figure, and at the head of the snake there are all these other little snakes. And so what Electric Universe talks about, and like Velikovsky and David Talbot and these guys, they talk about how like our ancestors were doing tons of just drawing and writing about what they were looking at in the sky. Almost the version of what we're doing right here with Saturn, just with the different types of tools. And so all the stuff that we know today, all the mythical archetypes, Halton archetypes, archetypes are essentially referential to plasma events in the sky that people anthropomorphized, made human, so that they could remember them better and tell their generational tales, because it probably happened over thousands of years in the sky. Yeah, I don't know if Icky thought up the moon matrix stuff, but I'm sure it's old school stuff. They were talking about how the moon was a dead moon and how the moon was a soul moon. There's always been these stories, and I think it could also be explained in the way that it's a negative anode, and the moon produces this light that essentially it putrefies. It's a putrefying light, and it rots things. And then the sun kind of grows things, and it has this perfect interchangeable energy cycle that makes sense. You know, you have to, when you talk about souls recycling, you have to think about like what do you think a soul is, and do you think you have a soul? And so I think you jump to a lot of like interesting fantasy stories without really, excuse me, dissecting down the question ultimately is like what do you need to know for? Or like, why do you want to know what the shape of the Earth is, or if there are aliens? Like, will it satisfy you if you know? Or will it change your life dramatically if you know for sure that there are aliens, and that you'll never meet them, for example? Which is what, science is sort of trying to say. I gotta say, I prefer to live in a world where I know that humans exist in some capacity, along with these amazing animals and creatures, like insects. Like I have this giant spider outside, incredible spider, like a weaver, speaking of which, is, completely tied to all these conspiracies as well. But yeah, these beautiful spiders just make amazing things, and that's the planet we live in. I don't see any aliens or Nibiru or any of these things happen, but you do see amazing trees, and you can grow flowers and make food and do random shit. Yeah, I'm not a big Joe Rogan fan, to be honest, Vision. Yeah, I'm probably clouded out right now. Hadley Scott McIntyre says, so if souls recycle and the term infinite realities or duplicate existences are true, perhaps we are reborn who we are again, but the gift of choice is again. I mean, to just answer that one and kind of wind the show down, is just like, you still have what you have now. So it's still, you're trying to live in this speculative reality, this future existence that is not real, or at least is not real right now. And then what happens is you live in constant speculation rather than experiencing the moment, is what everyone is really going after, I feel. This is the whole trick, is that people think, or not trick, I think these words that we've been conditioned to use make things more serious and stupider than they really are. So the simple thing is that you need to face death, which is really the only guarantee. And to face that, you need to have no regrets. And to have no regrets, you need to feel good about yourself. To feel good about yourself, that becomes this multi-dimensional approach to life where it takes a lot of things to feel good, given that life is just almost infinitely painful. physically and mentally challenging, as far as we know. So like adding things like UFOs and conspiracies and stuff complicates things dramatically, and never knowing an answer to them keeps life in a constant hamster wheel of confusion and disenfranchisement. And that's not to say that there isn't that, there definitely is that. But I think there's probably this other place that artists and creative people and people who thrive on creativity and not necessarily happiness and love, but just a sense of acceptance, tend to kind of get in a place where they question everything, and then they shun everything, and then they slowly start reintegrating and accepting everything. And that's what the long journey is. And I feel like, for me, I just see that the future is one of these things that demands accepting it, simply because we know that we're gonna die. So you have to kind of just look at it and know that death is close at any moment. Therefore, what's the point of speculating about all this other stuff and not living in this actual moment? Emily Slaughter says, I have videos of UFOs I caught when I was living in Brooklyn. I gotta say, I used to capture so many different things in the sky that I thought were UFOs, but turned out to be like Jupiter or Venus rising, because they're super duper bright and they look like they're coming right for you. But it's usually like Venus or Jupiter and or any number of different things like stars. Sometimes like Sirius glows so brightly. Like 3 years ago when I was first doing astronomy, Sirius was so bright that I was sure that the government was hiding the fact that this object in the sky was coming right for Earth, and that's it. But then you realize like stars actually glow like that, and scintillation happens, and the sky acts really bizarre sometimes, and sometimes it's very clear, and the moon has an effect on the sky, and there's a lot more to discover than to just always pretend that one knows instantly that it's a cover-up and conspiracy of the highest order without actually just experiencing it. Glory in Death says Hadley Scott McIntyre. Maybe. Or, glory in life and death, or remembrance in death. That's sort of what people want. Crazy Beautiful says the beauty of the design, the energy laughs too, the unrelated mind. Undelineated low, IO. Bliss, quiet, euphoria. Wake says, right on. Such a cool cat, thank you. Trying to be cool in a hot night. It's toasty. All right, I think that's it for me. A little Saturn stream. I don't know, it's just like completely fogged up at this point. I've said I'm sure 1,000 times today, but I appreciate y'all bearing with me and listening to me ramble on for a little bit tonight. Have a great Friday, and if it's clear, I'll be streaming. Share, like, and subscribe if you dig it, and if you want to support the channel. I know a lot of people want to donate sometimes, but I prefer if you grab the music. That's a good way to support it. Otherwise, just hang out and be good to each other. Talk to y'all soon. Good night.